Picture this. The sky over Cajamarca feels like it's raining blood. Emperor Atahualpa, a man revered as the literal son of the sun and the absolute ruler of millions, is sitting captive in a room. And it's not just any room. He is locked inside a space that is rapidly being filled, right up to the ceiling, with solid gold and silver. It is a staggering, unimaginable ransom for his freedom. And standing right across from this captive god emperor is a man named Francisco Pizarro.
Now Pizarro was a bearded stranger, totally alien to this land, covered in heavy iron armor. But what is truly mind-boggling about this standoff is the sheer math of the encounter. Pizarro brought with him just 168 men. That's it, just 168 desperate fortune seekers, completely isolated in rugged, unfamiliar territory.
And they were standing right in the beating heart of the massive Inca Empire. At its absolute peak, this civilization was 12 million strong. 12 million. Yet in the blink of an eye, the crown of this immense powerhouse falls, and the absolute greatest empire in the Americas simply collapses.
Which brings us to the central question of our explainer today. How? Seriously, how exactly does a 12 million strong, incredibly advanced empire fall to just 168 guys? Well, let's turn back the clock to the very beginning to figure out the anatomy of this collapse.
Section 1. Kings of the Andes, master engineers of a mountain empire.
To really grasp the sheer magnitude of what was lost here, we have to appreciate what the Inca actually built. Imagine an empire stretching across 6 modern-day countries, conquering some of the most unforgiving, brutal mountain terrain on Earth. And get this, they pulled this off lacking almost all the basic technologies the old world relied on. No wheels, no horses to haul heavy loads, no traditional written language, none of it. Yet they engineered these incredible cloud-piercing roads and built magnificent hanging cities, like the breathtaking Machu Picchu, right into the sides of steep cliffs. It's absolutely wild.
So you're probably wondering, how did they pull this off without currency? Well, they used something called the mita. Let's picture an average citizen. Let's call him Quipa. Quipa is just a humble potato farmer living up on a high mountain ridge. Under this mita system, Quipa doesn't pay taxes with money, he pays with his sweat. He farms the land, he helps build those massive state highways, and in return, the empire literally guarantees his survival. If a famine hits, the state opens its storehouses and feeds him. This social safety net was so rock solid that the people genuinely viewed their emperor not just as a king, but as a living, breathing god who provided for them.
Section 2. Poison in the empire's veins. The invisible enemy and civil war.
Now here's the thing, a catastrophic turning point hit the Inca before the Spanish conquerors even stepped foot inland. Back in 1527, before any Inca had ever even laid eyes on a European, disaster struck. Pizarro's scouting ships had merely coasted by the shoreline, but they left behind a weapon no one saw coming, and honestly no one knew how to fight: smallpox. It spread like wildfire through the population, completely transforming their mountain paradise into an absolute purgatory.
But the real tragedy of this plague wasn't just the sheer number of deaths, it was specifically who died. In the late 1520s, Emperor Huayna Capac caught the disease and died super suddenly, without naming an heir. He left behind 2 sons, Atahualpa up in the north and Huáscar down in the south. You can guess what happens next, right? A brutal civil war kicks off in the early 1530s. Blood absolutely soaked the local villages. Our peaceful farmer, Quipa, he was dragged right out of his potato fields to go slaughter his own cousins. The empire basically tore itself into 2 bleeding halves. So, by the time Pizarro finally marches inland in 1532, he's walking into a completely exhausted, fractured territory.
Section 3. The Golden Trap. The day everything changed. Okay, so we are back in 1532. The Civil War has finally ended, Atahualpa is the newly victorious emperor, and Francisco Pizarro sets a trap. He invites the emperor to a so-called peaceful meeting. Atahualpa, showing absolute regal confidence, rolls up carried on a dazzling golden litter, surrounded by 7,000 completely unarmed attendants. A Spanish friar steps forward and hands the living god a Bible. Now keep in mind, the emperor's civilization is entirely unfamiliar with books. He holds the object up to his ear, expecting it to speak. Hearing nothing, he just tosses it aside in frustration. And for Pizarro, that simple, misunderstood gesture was the exact excuse he needed to strike.
Instantly, hidden cannons roar to life. Armor-clad horses charge in, trampling the terrified crowd, while gunpowder tears through the plaza. Try to imagine the sheer terror here. The Inca had never seen horses in their lives, let alone gunfire. They literally believed they were being attacked by demonic beasts. In just 30 minutes of absolute, unadulterated chaos, thousands of unarmed attendants lay dead. And Pizarro, he didn't lose a single man. Not one. The almighty God Emperor was dragged right off his golden litter and put in chains.
Section 4. The Final Fade. Ransom, Betrayal, and Collapse.
Looking at the tragic aftermath of this ambush really helps us uncover the true fatal flaw of this magnificent civilization. While in captivity, Atahualpa quickly caught on to his captor's unnatural, almost frantic obsession with gold. Reaching his hand as high as he possibly could on the stone prison wall, he made a legendary promise. "I will fill this room with gold and the next 2 with silver, if you set me free." For months, the people of the Andes wept as they carried their ancestral treasures, their sacred solid gold statues, all to be melted down by the Spanish into plain ingots to pay the largest ransom in human history.
But as we know, greed knows no bounds. Even after receiving this unimaginable, literal mountain of wealth, Pizarro got paranoid. He was terrified of a native uprising coming to rescue their god, so he went back on his word. He took the massive ransom, and then he executed Emperor Atahualpa anyway.
It was the ultimate, perfect, lethal storm that completely erased an empire. See, the state didn't fall just because it lost a military skirmish to 168 men. It fell because it got hit with a devastating plague, a brutal civil war, and relentless foreign greed all at the exact same time. But the real kicker, the final nail in the coffin, was its greatest strength becoming its fatal weakness. The entire system was strictly top-down. The emperor was the heart and the brain of the whole civilization. Once that head was severed by Pizarro, the enormous body of the empire paralyzed completely. Within just a few years, the relentless jungles swallowed its grand cities whole.
Which leaves us with this final thought. The Inca engineered wonders that literally defied nature, yet their entire centralized structure shattered into pieces the very second the man at the top was removed. If one of the greatest, most highly organized empires in human history could collapse so completely because its central pillar was taken out, well, how fragile are the strictly top-down systems that we rely on in our own modern world? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.